Former Safety and Security Minister Sydney Mafumadi to respond to allegations surrounding the murder of activist Stompie Sepe. The DA's recall clause expected to dominate the party's caucus meeting today. A Port Elizabeth man who tossed his baby off a roof is in court for attempted murder.
It's a combination of when we get back, what assessment are we going to do for each of the code, for each of what we have put together, but we are excited about the medals that came up.
Sports and Recreation Minister Thokozile Xasa says that the team can do more after ending 6th on the Commonwealth Games Gold Coast medals table after winning 13 gold medals.
Very good morning and welcome to Newsroom. It's just gone 9 a.m. I'm Shante Yankees. Coming up this hour, we discuss the briefing ahead of what Mufamadi is expected to say. We will be joined with Ms. Sophie to discuss that. Of course, the briefing has started. Belen is also standing by for your sports. Belen?
Thank you very much, Shante. Good morning to you and to all of our viewers. We'll be bringing you sport here on Newsroom 1:45 every hour. But it's back to Shante's bringing you your top story.
Well, leading former Safety and Security Minister Sydney Mafumadi will this morning address the media on claims made by the then head of murder and robbery squad Henk Heslinga in the award-winning documentary titled Winnie. Let's now cross live to Sydney's speech.
The documentary that we are going to be discussing. The other document is a call for nominations for national orders. I will talk to these documents in the process of making my opening remarks to this media briefing. As you know, the documentary we are talking about was produced by one Pascale Lamche. It seeks to memorialize the legacy of the late comrade Winnie Nomzamo Madikizela Mandela. As you can well imagine, I had to field many questions from many people in South African society and beyond who wanted me to explain things arising out of the documentary. If you look at the 5 chilling revelations from the documentary, the document which talks to this, they are numbered they are listed and numbered, these revelations. The relevant revelation for our discussion this morning is revelation number 5. You may be wondering why I kept quiet, or we kept quiet for this long. I know that Commissioner Fivers, who's my co-accused in this matter, did an interview at the request of ENCA, responding to some of these revelations. I chose to observe the period of mourning for Comrade Nomzamo because I thought it will be wrong for me to be tempted to stampede her legacy, which, by the way, is our shared legacy. I believe that the producer of this documentary is an award-winning producer. And I know she's here. I wonder whether the people who give these awards regard issues of ethics as being of any materiality. I raise this question because, as I say, the document I gave you talks about 5 chilling revelations. You make 5 chilling revelations about people who are still alive. They are very much available. You don't think they have a right to ensure that they put forward a version which may corroborate what the other people are saying, or which may need to be compared and contrasted to what the other people are saying, which would have been a fair thing, I think, to do. This is a right I will promote and defend, even if the victim is not myself. I must also say that I received a call from Mrs. Gloria Sirobe of Whiphold. It is one of the corporate entities that contributed to the buying of this documentary so that they get the rights for it to be shown by ENCA. She wanted to know if I had any objection or any problems with it being shown, because she was told that it raises some controversial issue about me. And I said, I have absolutely no right to censor a documentary. I know that even though I was denied the right, or perhaps I was presumed deaf, because there's a lot of misinformation in the public domain, I was denied the right to participate. There are other ways by which I will be able to communicate with the South African public and the world, because I've been doing that in any case without the availability of this facility, the documentary. Now, the chilling finding. The ANC asked apartheid police to reopen investigations on Winnie about the Stompie murder. You can see I'm saying Winnie because I'm just reading directly what was said. In 1995, Minister of Safety and Security, and that was myself at the time, said that a team of police officers, including Hank Hesslinger, the dramatis persona in the documentary, must be established to reopen this investigation, find evidence linking her, Mrs. Mandela, to the assassination and murder of Stompie. And the minister promised, well, maybe I should say, this is what is being said in the document I gave you in 1995. I don't know what that document was quoting, because Hank Hesslinger in the documentary, using the mouth which is his and not another person's mouth, says 1994. But anyway, this document says 1995. And in the process of talking to the team, which Hesslinger was part of, the minister said, I am a member of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, and then promised the team unlimited access to budgetary resources, which will even enable them to travel the world. Now, Hesslinger is not, even at the time of being interviewed, is not a constable who had just graduated from basic police training. A senior police officer who should know best that as far as operational issues are concerned, deciding on whether to open or close investigations, that is the province of the National Commissioner. It's not the responsibility of the minister. I know what he was describing. He's describing things that I heard about how policing used to be done before 1994. He was not describing what we did. We ran ethical governance in the Ministry of Safety and Security and in the Department of Safety and Security. He knows Hesslinger fully well that the accounting officer of that department which he belonged to is the Commissioner of Police. There was no slush fund. Maybe he still had a propensity for slush funds. We did not have them during my time in that office. He must also credit me with some decent level of IQ. Why would I say to a police officer, I'm a member of the NEC, of the ANC? What does that have to do with my relationship with him? I'm a member of the NEC, of the ANC. I did not have time for irrelevancies. I really did not have that. I don't know what sensation he wanted to produce, even as he talked about that. I think he is a very dismal estimation of my intelligence to even suggest that I said that. But I will still say a few things about Hesslinger as we proceed in our briefing. Now, I went into that ministry having been deployed by the ANC, appointed by President Nelson Mandela. I knew that our primary responsibility was to transform the police force into a police service that was going to be an instrument for dealing with the challenges of crime in the country. And I knew that it was a police force because it was positioned to do things that were chilling. I think the most chilling things that you could ever come across are things that the police used to do before 1994. They had a counter-insurgency campaign that went by the name of Stratcom, which was premised on the drive to create a climate of opinion which would foment divisions within the liberation movement. That was primarily the responsibility of specific units within the security establishment and the special branch of the SAP and the special branches of the former Bantustan police forces played that role. They wanted to reverse the tide then of the anti-apartheid struggle. We knew that we had a responsibility to demilitarize the police and take the police out of politics, because politics is not their business. You will see in that documentary that there is one Paul Erasmus, also a police, a member of the police force then, who was talking apparently authoritatively about Stratcom operations. And he was talking about what he knows. And he does talk about the existence of radicals and non-radicals in the ANC. Now you will understand why we wanted to take them out of politics, because they did not even know politics. He talks about a division that did not exist in the ANC, because people joined the ANC on the realization that there was something radically wrong in South African society, and you needed a radical solution to the problems which drove these people into the ANC. So you couldn't be a member of the ANC and not be radical. This false division was created by Stratcom in order to create conditions for the liberation movement and generally society to be divided so that we could fight amongst ourselves and in the process get weakened. But he talks about that. I must tell you that we knew that this Stratcom business, counter-intelligence, counter-insurgency campaign, was not just a peculiarity of the special branch in South Africa. This is what some of their soulmates did in places like Latin America, the military dictatorships there, in the former British colonies, in places like Haiti and so on. So they did that because they wanted to preserve the system of apartheid, which was fundamentally undemocratic. So we faced the responsibility to reorientate these police officers and focus them on the task of fighting crime. And you can see when you listen to Erasmus that he had still planted himself on the wrong side of this national agenda, because that's all he was trained for many years to do. That's all he knew, that he must be looking for ways to divide the people. Now, I think I must share this with the public through you. It was a very difficult task we faced when we got into government. And I'll illustrate this, because by virtue of where I was sitting in that dispensation, I received delegations of people who were operatives in these Stratcom operations, especially the ones who were peeling away from Flag Plus, which was the seat, one of the seats of Stratcom. Listened to chilling stories which should not be made into a toy. So even when some senior officers in the police were mobilizing against the Truth Commission, I understood what they feared. Because some of the things they did, are things that they would not even want their own loved ones to know, that they are capable of doing such horrendous things. So when General van der Merwe, for instance, the former commissioner of the SAP, was really leading the mobilization against people going to the Truth Commission from the SAP's and so on, I understood what he feared, because I had these insights that were being brought to us, which I was sharing with the leadership of my organization and government, because my organization was leading the government at the time. So we were mobilizing the police and other people coming from the non-statutory bodies, in our case, especially people from MK, to cooperate with the TRC for reasons which must be obvious. These ones feared the TRC. You know that the leadership of the ANC went to the Truth Commission. It's the leadership that was in government at the same time, went to the Truth Commission and made a collective submission to the TRC in which we owned up to the armed actions that were carried out by members of the ANC. We explained the policy context in which those armed actions were being undertaken. We also explained the context in which members on the ground carried out actions that were in conflict with policy. Instances, for instance, where civilians died. I don't go into detail about that, but we can talk about it if you so wish. I'm saying we went into detail about that. And then we said, when subsequent to this, individual leaders and members of the ANC come to make their own presentations about specific issues, specific to them, please, you must look at their submissions in the context of our presentation. You will have seen that, indeed, individual leaders and members went to the Truth Commission. I will give you two examples. Comrade Nomzamo Winnie Mandela went to the Truth Commission. She had a conviction of kidnapping. You needed amnesty for that. I went to the Truth Commission. I also had a conviction of kidnapping, kidnapped a policeman before 1994. Before 1994, kidnapped a policeman. I needed amnesty. Comrade Winnie and myself are not the only two leaders who went to the Truth Commission. There are others who did. Coming back to what I was saying about Paul Erasmus, the Stratcom people, including him, understood the relationship between the UDF, COSATU, and the ANC. And they understood the problems which these organizations were giving them. The intensification of the struggle in the country, their own unity at the time, because it's important to paint this context. Their own unity at the time was beginning to crack up in different directions. Intellectuals from Stellenbosch who used to rationalize apartheid were beginning to want to see the ANC. Captains of industry were also beginning to go out to Lusaka to see the ANC, which means Stratcom was losing the war. I want you to understand what they did in desperation. One of the things that they did, they killed children and women, I think 11 or 12, at a place called Kwamakuta in present-day KwaZulu-Natal. This is something that is on record. Why did they do that? Because Oliver Tambo was going to meet George Shultz in Washington. And they said, we can't lose our friend, the Americans, because this chap will convince them that he's a nice guy, his organization just has a just cause. So let's kill these children. And Craig Williamson, who was part of these STRATCOM operations, actually says that we intensified our communication campaign internationally, particularly in 1987, as Oliver Tambo was touring around the world, because they were becoming desperate. So the killing of civilians on their part was not done just by people on the ground who were agitated by this or that. It was a political act. Now you are listening to these STRATCOM operatives in that documentary, and you gain an impression that they cared about black lives, civilian lives. That's the impression you could easily get unless you have sufficient strategic literacy to see through these nuances, these hidden nuances. In 1981, a lawyer who was a member of the ANC, served a number of years on Robben Island, Griffith Mxenge, is killed in Durban. General van der Merwe, who when I came in was Commissioner of Police, the one who was leading the mobilization against the TRC, issues a statement then and said Griffith Mxenge was given money by the ANC to pay for the defense of its members. People use this funny word. He ate the money, and the ANC is angry with him. Now, you only get to know years later when some people from Flag Plus deserted and went to Lusaka, and they say, we killed Griffith Mxenge. But that statement was put out in order to create commotion in the ANC, because Griffith Mxenge was a very popular member of the ANC. So we must be divided and fight amongst ourselves if we buy the van der Merwe narrative. Why does this documentary feel that it is enough to have Macpherson, Erasmus, and Hesslinger telling the people of South Africa the story of the life and times of Winnie Madikizela Mandela? And my perspective against whom they make this chilling revelation is not material to the issue. Now, I must also say this. Whether it happened deliberately or inadvertently, the story, in the way it is told, it assimilates Comrade Winnie's positive legacy on balance. Positive legacy on balance. It assimilates that legacy into the Stratcom narrative. You might as well just ask the chief of Stratcom operations to write a biography of Winnie Mandela, if you want to approach it this way, that the views of her own comrades must be subservient to the views of Stratcom. An award-winning now, I need to say this because if I don't say it, although that was not my principal aim, I was dealing with the chilling allegations. There was a time when in the mass democratic movement, we got worried about things that were happening around Comrade Winnie. We had every right to be worried. Things that were being done by the Mandela United Football Club in the name of Comrade Winnie, and by extension in the name of the liberation movement, which Nelson Mandela and Winnie, Comrade Winnie, were some of which they were some of the leaders. I'm saying the mass democratic movement, and if people did not know this, of course we didn't admit this to the police. The UDF, which was a coalition of more than 400 organizations, COSATU and so on, were led by people, many people who were leaders in the ANC or members of the ANC. So that forming those organizations was actually part of an ANC task. We were worried. And we counseled Comrade Winnie against keeping that outfit called the Mandela Football Club. She had her own views about the club. Our own political antenna said there must be people in that outfit who are agent provocateurs. We did not have evidence. So out of frustration, having made many, many attempts, we said, no, we can't take responsibility for this thing that we are saying. It must go. Comrade Winnie is of a different view. The decision to distance the mass democratic movement from her came from there. Now you see in those old images, Comrade Murphy Murube sitting there, making the announcement. He was flanked by Achi Gumede, the president of the UDF, a long-standing member, a member of long-standing of the ANC, whose father was once president of the ANC in 1927, Josiah Gumede. On the other flank, you had Elijah Bakhai, a member of the ANC Youth League, who joined it before the ANC was banned. Murphy Murube went to Robben Island as a student leader and so on, but before he got his main sentence, he was sentenced, I think 6 months or so, for refusing to testify against Joe Gabi and other comrades. These were ANC comrades. Joe Gabi was subsequently assassinated in Zimbabwe, where he was chief representative of the ANC, by these characters that are giving an authoritative ode on Comrade Winnie in the documentary. Now, I'm saying by association, of course, because they were part of that milieu. I'm not saying they did it individually, they were part of that milieu. Now, there should be no confusion as to what was the MDM, what was the ANC. So we met with the leadership in Lusaka. Incidentally, it was Murphy and myself, Comrade Murphy, who met with the leadership in Lusaka. And we're discussing this thing. And I need to disabuse people of this notion that there were instructions, orders, and so on. That was the internal leadership of the ANC sitting down with the externally based leadership of the ANC, exchanging views. Okay, comrades, you say you are distancing yourself, the MDM, from Comrade Winnie. Don't you think that you are denying yourselves the possibility to allow her to benefit from the collective insights that come from the rest of you? What must be her point of reference from now on? Are you not underestimating the weight in these problems, the weight of the role of the other side? Now, there are people who say, well, who are they? The ones who were outside. They actually even think that they were responsible for our decision to distance the MDM. Why did they take this decision from that distance where they were just analyzing and reading books and so on? We took that decision. And they said, no, we are going to make a public statement persuading you to be patient with Comrade Winnie. You must find a way of getting her to continue to work with you. But they had the benefit of things that only they could have the benefit of. Because Dek Kutsie and the others, when they broke away from Flag Plus, they couldn't come to Meadowlands where I lived and say, hide me, and then I debriefed them. They had to go to Lusaka. So they understood these things that later come as confessions at the Truth Commission. That there are too many people in the football club who are serving other interests. They understood that. It's not something that we needed them to come and talk about from FNB Stadium. I'm saying they had the benefit of this. Hence, they came at this discussion differently. The relationship between the leadership outside and the leadership in the MDM was such that as the struggle was intensifying, the quality of the decisions they took outside improved because of their interaction with us, but also the quality of our own decisions improved for the same reason. That's how we worked. Now I'm going to tell you a secret, which must remain a secret between us. The comrades had said, reach out, continue to reach out to Comrade Winnie. I get a call the night before we had to go to FNB Stadium to receive Comrade Sisulu, Walter Sisulu, and the other comrades who had just been released from prison. I get a call from Europe where our president then, Oliver Tambo, was hospitalized. The call is made by Antoni Mungalu, Comrade Antoni Mungalu. Some of you may know him because we are no longer underground. Even then, you must have known him, because underground does not mean hibernation. So he calls me and he says, in the middle of the night, Comrade Sydney, how good are your shorthand skills? I said, none. He said, then we are going to spend a long time on this phone. I'm going to dictate Comrade Oliver Tambo's speech, which must be delivered tomorrow. Now, he can say must, because that was my president speaking on behalf of him, which must be delivered tomorrow. You write it up as I dictate it. So I write up this thing. And then I must then find a typewriter. I don't have one. It's something that I can only do now by working with a reliable comrade, a comrade you treasure. So I drive to Comrade Winnie's house. I wade through the people who were sitting there, the football club and so on, and I get to her. She wakes up. OR wants us to do this. She gives me the typewriter. I say, I can't type. You type. She says, I can't type. So we phone Obri Mukwena. People will know Obri Mukwena. I phone Obri Mukwena. He comes with his wife, Mali Mukwena. And Mali types OR speech. Now, what people know is the MDM distanced itself from Comrade Winnie. We are working to get over that. I'm telling you about one of the things that happened, of which I had first-hand experience. I gave you a document there, which is a nomination form for national awards. You will see that, you will remember that Comrade Winnie got the Order of Luthuli in silver in Freedom Day last year. You will see that she is one of those 22 people who were nominated for that. They were nominated by me. You can see that. You see at least 10 of the people who appear on that list, or let me say, all of those comrades were with Comrade Winnie in 1967 when they set up an underground machinery for which they got arrested, and then they were charged in 1969. It's a long trial. That is the generation that brought up some of us. Some of the people who appear on that list are the ones who recruited us into the underground structures of the ANC. Otherwise, we would have been playing dice in the streets, in the townships. They risked to identify people, young people, and bring them into the movement. You will see the type of motivation that is there. You don't destroy someone and then nominate them for a national award. It's an absurdity to even suggest that. So I'm saying Comrade Winnie's legacy is not a matter of conjecture, the sort of conjectures you see in the documentary. Perhaps the leadership of the ANC gave Nelson Mandela an ultimatum to divorce his wife, our place. If the ANC were to say to me, divorce your wife, I'll tell them this is a private matter in relation to the ANC. It means you don't know your ANC if you give me that order. The ANC does not discuss those things. It doesn't discuss those things. But if you got someone not from Stratcom, the people who you are making chilling findings, against whom you are making chilling findings, to explain the ANC on its own terms. I think that would have been a good thing to do. That would have been the best way to use Winnie's life and times as a prism to memorialize her legacy, which is indivisible from the legacy of the ANC. The ANC will never claim that all it did were just a chronicle of interventions, unerring interventions. We have a legacy that will have its negatives, that will have its positives. It's our legacy. We will never disown a single element of Comrade Winnie's legacy. We will explain what needs to be explained in context. These people know what they did to create conditions for things to be done in the name of Mandela, in the name of Comrade Winnie, in order to tarnish the image of the liberation movement. Then it's either Comrade Winnie is intrinsically evil, or she belongs to a movement that is intrinsically evil, of people who are just prone to fighting each other. Yesterday, I received a call from Julius Malema, the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF. And he gave me very welcome advice, which I must acknowledge publicly. I really welcome it. He says to me, my leader, and I say my CIC, because I believe that's his title. I believe you are going to a media briefing. That was after this notice was issued. Please handle this briefing in a way that helps us to stop fighting over this issue. So I say, well, Julius, you are giving this advice to somebody who is receptive to this. Because I don't even know why, in the first place, people were fighting over this matter. Because I've heard people saying, why is 5us only saying this for now, after Comrade Winnie has passed on, that she was found to be innocent after an investigation, which he does say he opened the investigation at the request of Tony Leon, the leader then of the Democratic Party, which later became the DA. So they say, why is he only talking now? But 5us said in the interview, I went to the Truth Commission and said this, to the Truth Commission in 1997. Why is it difficult to understand that he has said this? Where are our listening skills? He said this in 1997. And he also said he opened this thing at the request of Tony Leon. I don't know if Tony Leon has whispered a denial, but I know that he has not denied that. He can't deny that because he went to Vartes asking 5us to open the investigation. But then there are others whose concern is of a different kind. They say, but why did Comrade Sydney Man allow the apartheid police to investigate Mama? So there must be a law for the ANC and a law for non-ANC. You can, in all seriousness, be asking that there are people who must not be investigated. Sidney Mufamadi, when he was Minister of Safety and Security, if somebody went to the commissioner and made allegations, the commissioner would be dismissed for not having investigated those allegations. He would be dismissed for not having carried out that investigation. So I say to Julius, but you know, maybe we are blaming you wrongly. Those of you who think that this matter is a matter for football, you fight and so on about it. My generation and the generation before me, we are not discharging the responsibility to these younger, public-spirited people across the board, whether it's EFF, DA, ANC, PAC, at least to share vital information and knowledge with you, because that will also help. And I say to Julius, of course, Julius is younger than my firstborn, and he can't have a lived experience of the things we are talking about, the Truth Commission and so on. So his imagination must be helped through provision of information. So I say to him, we need to share this information with you, comrades, so that you can have a better understanding of the subtleties of what the other side is doing, especially those who begrudge the new dispensation. Because I know we defeated their machinations. That's why 1994 happened. They must be surprised that they seem to be succeeding now. We are fighting amongst ourselves because we are believing this thing. So it's through no fault of your own. We made an agreement with Julius that I will mobilize people of my generation and older so that we continue to engage on these things, share information, because even us too, as I say, we had the benefit of being brought up by Comrade Winnie's generation. They shared information with us. At the age of 23, these comrades made me a general secretary, the youngest general secretary at the time of a trade union. And we knew then, because of what they told us, abandon this notion that you have a right of the innocent, a right to the innocence of childhood, because you are taking big responsibilities. You could set the country on fire, and with it, the ANC and many other important gains that were made in 1994 could perish fighting over nothing. Fighting over nothing. Because Winnie, it's our own. We know her place in our movement, her place in the country. If there are people who are more authoritative about who Winnie is, it's us. So I'm saying, Comrade Winnie's generation taught us politics. They taught us, they gave us listening skills. That's why we don't we don't miss out the important message that people convey to us. Like, I went to the Truth Commission, that's 5 of us, in 1997, and told the Truth Commission that there was no evidence linking Winnie to the murder of Stompie. Now, Hank Hesslinger. When George Fivers went to the Truth Commission and he said, I appointed a team of 3 detectives to investigate this, he named them. One of the 3 was Hank Hesslinger. And the Truth Commissioner said, why did you appoint Hank Hesslinger? because there are controversies around this person. I'm talking about the truth commissioners, not me. And 5 of us said no. I appointed him knowing about these controversies. The thing is, he was in the Soweto murder and robbery squad when these things happened. He was in the investigation team then, but I appointed him with 2 other investigators who are seasoned investigators. I know they can't be bamboozled by anyone, but I needed to have in the team someone who will recognize the landmarks. Because it's research work. They recognize the landmarks and be able to ensure that you don't just go all over the show. Because I had just opened a narrow element of the investigation, which is whether Mrs. Mandela is linked by evidence to the murder and assault of Stompie. And the Truth Commission accepted that explanation. Now, what are these controversies? Again, you will recall that in the run-up to 1994, when we were negotiating in the context of CODESA, even before CODESA, the single biggest obstacle to the transition that we faced was politically motivated violence. We needed to find ways of stopping that violence so that all of us can have greater confidence in the negotiation process, but also to save lives. So a judge was identified who was different from the many judges that you had during apartheid, who had a sensitivity to human rights. Judge Goldstone was then asked to head up a commission to investigate what is really behind this violence. So Judge Goldstone, in the same way as he was handpicked, he handpicked detectives from the police that were known to have done their work without fear or favor, that had solved cases like the Kwamakuta case that I was talking about, that had solved cases which were part of the Stratcom-spawned atrocities. Hank Hesslinger was seconded to the Goldstone Commission unsolicited by the police. Of course, they accepted him, but some credibility issues arose, as a result of which the commission said, well, you gave us this man unsolicited. Thank you very much. You can have him back. You can talk to Goldstone. He's still alive. I'm sure, because I want to accept the bona fides of the producer of the documentary, I'm sure they did not know this part, because they would have known that maybe 5 of us would have given them a more reliable account than to anchor a chilling finding on a person whose place in history is the one that I've just outlined. And as I say, because it's not information we thought could be shared in the way I'm now being forced to share it. Except that if people were watchful, they would have said, what are the truth commissioners saying? You know what I mean? What are the truth commissioners saying about Hank Hesslinger? So I still maintain that those of us who fought for the liberation of this country alongside Comrade Winnie are the authorities on what happened and why it happened. We could have helped, we could have helped the cause of truth. We could have served the cause of truth, not by suppressing the others. Give them the right to lie, if that is the right they want to enjoy. But we could have helped by also putting a perspective that is intended to ensure that people know the truth, because it is this truth which will safeguard the gains that were made by our people in the long struggle that they were waging. Because, you know, these generations I'm talking about, they are going. Please feed them the truth, because if you don't feed, I'm talking about the younger generation, feed them the truth, because if you don't feed them the truth, they will destroy their own country. They will tear each other apart. Why should we do Stratcom's job? Thank you.
Okay, so we have time. We're going to take a couple of questions, a couple of rounds of questions. I'll take 3 at a time so that we can be able to address them more in detail and more meaningful. Audrey Tandeka and SABC.
Ubuya pusisi sindisiwe. Okay, we are kaya.
Okay. So let's start with Audrey from BBC.
Okay,
Audrey Brown.
Audrey?
Audrey Brown.
Thanks very much. I want to ask 5 short questions, really.
5?
And the reason why you'll see when you hear the questions.
Okay. No, I'm not.
Of establishing clarity, trying to extrapolate from what you're saying now. So I want to ask first, are you saying that Stratcom operations were still going on in the police in 1995, and that your investigation, as outlined by Henk Kesslinger, was ordered using your name in order to sow divisions? That's the first one. So did you know that that investigation was happening at the time, and did you know that this Stratcom ops was still going on? Was the first time you heard of the ops against Mrs. Mandela in the documentary, when you saw the documentary? I'm not sure if you did see the documentary or not, but was that the first time you actually heard of it? And then, did you ever meet Paul Erasmus or any of the people that made these allegations? And then my final question is, I'm still not clear, did the ANC, was there an interest within government to find out what had really happened with Stormzy? So was there an investigation in order to establish what was going on, not necessarily to vilify or implicate Mrs. Mandela, but just to be clear about what was happening? So I want to know whether you had indeed ordered an investigation based on other premises than the ones posited by the documentary.
The questions are so many that I thought I will take a group of questions. So let's have a democratic consensus. How are we going to do this? Do I answer these questions, and the rest of you will be so disciplined that not that she's not disciplined. She was working without the consensus then. Now that's right. That's right. The rest of us will find a way of making 10 questions look like 1 question.
Okay.
So that we take a group of questions, but these ones, if you allow me, I can deal with them.
Yeah, Comrade Sin, I was going to say that let's deal with these ones first, and then I'll come to you, Tandek, after this. It's fine. And then because there are many these ones. So let's
You say, or you ask, 1995, were the Stratcom operations still going on? I don't know. What I do know is that 1995, there were still people in the police who wanted to make sure that they mobilized to ensure that Stratcom operations are not brought under scrutiny. And I did say that I understand it's embarrassing, some of the things they did. You don't even want your darling to know that you are that cruel. You know, that you could do things that they were doing at Flag Plus and still come and play with your children. You understand what I'm saying? So that I know, that there were people who were doing everything in their power to ensure that Hesslinger, was he using my name to create? When I saw Hesslinger saying that, I said, what in God's world is happening? Why would a person lie with such a straight face? Because of the reasons that I gave you. The minister has not joined investigation units. I don't know the individual weaknesses and strengths of 140,000 members of the SAPS. It's the business of the commissioner to know that. When you say, was it the first time that I heard of Stratcom operations? No.
No, against, specifically within the context of a democratic police force.
That the Democratic Police Force had Stratcom operations?
Well, that an investigation like this could have been happening.
No, firstly, I thought you were saying, was it the first time that I heard of Stratcom operations against Comrade Winnie? I did say to you, discussing with comrades in Lusaka, I was very clear that there were Stratcom operations intended to vilify Comrade Winnie in the process as a way of vilifying the rest of us, because we were part of Winnie, Comrade Winnie, and she was also part of us. Did I meet Paul Erasmus? He's not a face I've not seen before. I was not seeing that face for the first time in the what do you call it, this?
In the document.
Yeah, but frankly speaking, I don't remember sitting down with Paul Erasmus and having tea. I don't remember. I'm not saying it didn't happen. You must know that in the position in which I was, I met many people. But I had always known, I had known before about him, because he had a reputation which made it necessary for me to know him. Actually, disrepute. Was there an investigation? Let me say this again. There was a police investigation against or on Comrade Winnie before we came into government. You remember she was charged. Eh? Yeah, I know that. There was that investigation. Then, when we came into government, Tony Leon comes to see the commissioner. It's this thing we keep going back to. And caused the commissioner to reopen the investigation. People say, Comrade Sidney can't say he did not know. And I never said I did not know. Because Commissioner Fivers cannot do an investigation of that kind without telling his minister. It's not an investigation about a tree that fell and killed a cat. It's an investigation focusing on a public representative, member of parliament, Winnie Mandela, who was part of this movement that brought about change in the country and so on. So if there was an investigation, for instance, which did happen on Magnus Malan, I knew about it. And I knew that Magnus Malan was going to be arrested, because it is something that I must explain politically when it happens, right? So I knew that there is an investigation on Comrade Winnie. I knew that he has picked his investigation team. I never sought to say, don't pick up so-and-so, don't pick up so-and-so, because he's the one who must account for the decisions he takes. So I knew about it. What people conveniently forget, because they think that it was intended to vilify her, is to forget that he went to the Truth Commission and said, no evidence. I was looking at a picture of Comrade Winnie talking to Fivers shortly after Fivers finished his testimony. They were laughing. But he says to me, she said to me, thank you very much. And now I understand why President Mandela appointed you. You are a man of integrity. And he said, no, I was not here to exonerate you. I was not doing you a favor. I was here to tell the commission the truth. But he says, she kept on saying, thank you very much. You are a man of integrity. And indeed, we knew that we appointed a man of integrity. We did not appoint these ones who were telling the world that we killed Mkleng. Thank you.
Tandega.
My name is Tangela Kubule. As you know, I wrote the first story and I found the body of Stompie Sepe in the mortuary in Soweto. Now I stand accused of being a Stratcom spy. And for the sake of history, let me say, I will never reveal the sources on that story, but not a single one of them was a police source. All the sources were in the church, which was worried sick. All the sources were neighbors and community members. And all the sources were members of the mass democratic movement, in which I was rooted from the age of 14. Now I want to know, when you first sat in your desk as Minister of Police, Stratcom was a police project. And people came and they brought to you details of the operations of Stratcom. I don't seek to make my problem yours, and I will be going to the High Court to apply for the declassification of files involving myself. But did you at any stage see or hear that I or my colleagues who worked at the Weekly Mail were agents of Stratcom? Or did you just hear that we did an honest story and did journalism, investigative journalism, and we were indeed ahead of the police investigations on these matters, and we punched above our weight?
Tandega, well, you've got a unique story. You also took advantage of the uniqueness of your story to ask a number of questions. I don't know what you think we do. We take the next question, or do we deal with this question?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think the country must thank you for what you did. You must not be deterred from being an honest journalist. I don't know what people meant when they said you were working for Stratcom. Maybe that's the first impression they had, but they have an obligation to study developments in the country. Do you know who killed Stompie? I'm not saying were you there. I'm saying, do you know?
I know that Jerry Richardson was involved in the...
No, he said he killed Stompy in court. And he said that also at the Truth Commission. That's right. And Jerry Richardson said he himself was a police spy.
He did, a registered one.
That's right. You must assume that the Stratcom types knew that he was going to kill Stompy. You understand what I'm saying now? You must understand that they knew he killed Stompy because he's their person. I think these are issues we should not even debate. So you can't work for Stratcom. I'm talking now logic. You can't work for Stratcom and expose their operation. That's simple logic. I'm not cleansing you because I don't have answers to the actual questions you are asking. And I'll tell you why I'm saying so. And you also did say, I think I'm making your job difficult. I don't know why you proceeded to do so. There is nobody who came to me from the police and said, here are the Stratcom files. And you should know, having been a journalist during that period we are talking about of the transition, that the files were taken away, presumably by people who owned those files. Some were destroyed, others were kept by individuals. I hope you understand. Others were kept by individuals, some of whom made them available, say, to the Truth Commission or to the, what do you call it now, to the Goldstone Commission before the Truth Commission. Nobody came to me and said, we've got a box full of files from Stratcom. Now, you were at the Weekly Mail. Anton Haber, who was editor of the Weekly Mail, wrote to me when I was Minister for Safety and Security. And he said, dear Minister, I'm exercising my right in terms of the information, access to information.
Access to information.
Yeah. Why do I forget a law that I was party to passing? I know what it says, I just forgot the title. He said, I'm exercising my right in terms of this law. Can you please ask the police who report to you to give me access to such file as they may have kept about me or on me. So I pass it on to Van der Merwe. That was before we appointed Fivers. Well, yes. So I pass it on to Van der Merwe. Now, he must bring the response to me so that I transmit it to Anton Haber. So I look at this file. It says name, Anton Haber, address, white male. He's Jewish, no? He's Jewish. Yeah, because I thought maybe I'm forgetting. White Jewish male, editor of Mail and Guardian. That's all it said. He gave it to me. That's the file they kept on Anton Haber. So I transmit it to Anton Haber. Anton Haber writes back and said, this can't be all really they kept on me. So I called Van der Merwe to my office and I said, General, he was general then before we demilitarized the police service. General, this man says this can't be all we kept on him. He says, what else does he say we kept on him? So I said, no, this is all he said. He says, He takes himself so seriously that he thought we were really just looking for him. That's all we have, Minister, on him. I didn't believe that he was telling the truth. If I said that to him before 1994, he would have tortured me. That you think you are clever, right? You don't want to talk. But that's all he gave me on Anton Harbour. Go and ask Anton Harbour. Then you can understand it's part of this reluctance to cross the Rubicon. The reluctance to cross the Rubicon. The reluctance, which explains why when you go to these ex-Stratcom people to talk to them, the first thing they look for is a lie to tell you. What lie can I tell? It doesn't have to be plausible. Take it or leave it. Thank you.
I'm disappointed because I was just hoping that for the first time in my life, I would know who my handler was. For the first time in my life, I would know myself and that I would know my code name. Well, I'll have to go to court to find that out. Thank you very much.
But I hope you're not blaming me because I'm a victim. Like you, I'm a victim. But the real point I'm making is that if you had written to me at the time, maybe we would have found a file even if it was empty. Now you're asking me at the wrong time. You know what
Can I take more questions? Just in the interest of time. Yes.
Two quick questions. What I want to know is, was there no communication to you before the documentary was aired at any point? Because I don't think it was taken now and aired now. Was there no communication in terms of a letter or whatever to you in order to get your side of the story? Secondly, since you're saying that you're taking the creation of the documentary in good faith, as you said, bona fide, do you feel as though it was just an oversight, or do you feel that it was created particularly to give Stratcom's point of view of the documentary? And thirdly, all of those questions can be answered in one. What do you want moving forward in this particular documentary? What would you like going forward for this documentary? Do you feel like there should be an apology? Do you feel that it should continue to be aired? Because as much as it might not be aired any further, or you could still access it on other platforms, what should happen on this documentary?
Good morning. My name is Namboni Sogasi.
What?
My name is Namboni Sogasi.
How fun no more this one.
I can't hear. I'm not a journalist. I just want to ask you this question, which has been troubling me in the interim between the passing of Mama Winnie.
The what?
In the interim between the passing of Mama Winnie and the funeral. That our society has become very polarized by this one version or that version. I ask you now, as my leader during UDF, what is it that you think we should do as a country and as a people to ensure that we do not go to where we have been before, to ensure that whatever positions we hold, we do not destroy people like Tandega and others, to ensure that the lessons that we have learned and the blood that we have shed as a country is enough. What is it that you can, that's why I came to this press conference. I was sitting at home and I was watching you, and I admired your discipline and your calmness. And I thought, let me come in, because I really think that what we do from now on is also going to be very important for the future of this country.
Two more questions.
My name is Pascal Banclair. I'm the don't know whether I can put them all to you now. The first question. Oh, right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a number of questions, and they will come in sort of different orders, but I think they're important. I noted when George Fivers was on television recently that he mentioned a Colonel Moodley, but he did not. He mentioned that he had a personal relationship with Henk Heslinger, but he suggested that Henk Heslinger was not a member of that team that went to reinvestigate the allegations against Winnie Mandela. That was the first thing. Secondly, I note from all you say today that you have been sort of mixing up Stratcom and Soweto detective murder detectives. And in fact, Henk Heslinger, just to be absolutely clear, was not a Stratcom operative. He was a murder detective in the Soweto branch of the police force. When you said earlier that policemen were brought onto the Goldstone Commission because they, without fear or favour, had done their job, etc. I'm just slightly troubled with the sort of sensation that I'm getting, because of course Henk Heslinger is in the film and gives testimony, or rather gives an interview to me that is central to the questions today. So my question to you firstly is, did you ever meet Henk Heslinger? Secondly, did you know he was a member of the team that were going to investigate Winnie Mandela and all the allegations against her? Thirdly, would it have been possible that a really large budget, was made available for these investigations that included a session by Colonel Moodley of a 2-month trip to the United Kingdom to investigate and coordinate things that were going on with the Baroness Emma Nicholson around the testimony of Katiza Kebukulu, who then produced this book, Katiza's Journey, that became a critical centerpiece in the damning of Winnie Mandela, and was carried into the TRC by Jerry Richardson and by Police Wafalati. And would it have been possible to spend over 300,000 rand in earth-digging material to try and uncover bodies in Dobsonville? This all on the accounts that Jerry Richardson gave to the team. And would you have known that Jerry Richardson, who was at that time in jail, of course, serving in a maximum security jail, serving a life prison sentence for the murder of Stompie Sipe, that would you have known that when the investigating team who went in to speak with him found out that he had been promised a sum of 10,000 rand for the information that he gave, that resulted in a sort of a sting operation in which 3 senior MK cadres were gunned down in Jerry Richardson's house. When they discovered that he hadn't been paid this money, they went back to their records, checked their records, found that it was true. Well, Henk Heslinger and a core group. But this is my question: did you know about this investigating committee that involved Henk Heslinger and Colonel H.T. Moodley, and one other that I know of who travelled to London?
Is that Dempsey?
Were you aware of
Is that Dempsey?
Yes, it's Dempsey.
Okay.
Were you aware of these people? Were you aware of their investigations? And then were you aware that when they went to check whether Richardson had been paid in the past and found that he had not been paid in the past, he was paid when he was in jail? And because he could not spend cash in jail. He was paid in kind. He was paid in kind, one with football uniforms, which you will see in material around the TRC. He's actually wearing, Jerry Richardson is actually wearing inside of that material, brand new Mandela United Football Club jerseys and footballs. Plus Henk Hesselinga told me that they also bought him in kind an engagement ring for his fiancée. So I was just wondering, possibly. When I asked Winnie Mandela, she jumped to that conclusion, and it is possible that it was Police Wilfalati, yes. Okay. But so I'm just wondering whether you knew of any of this, whether none of this is to your knowledge, and then lastly, I understand, but please correct me if I'm wrong, that at that Goldstone Commission, Henk Hesselinga, who was part of that commission, also met you there because you were the representative.
What did he do?
He met you there because you were the representative of Kasatu at the time at the Goldstone Commission. Is that true? Because Henk Hesselinga told me that you became quite familiar with each other at that stage, at the Goldstone Commission. So that would have made sense if you'd met at the Goldstone Commission and then later, as it's suggested, as Henk Hesselinga told to me, when George Fivers asked him to come to the minister's office, i.e., of course, at that time, that you already knew Henk Hesselinga because you had met in the Goldstone Commission and you'd become quite familiar with each other. So those are my questions.
I hope that is not his claim to fame that he was familiar with me. But we'll talk about that. No, Melissa, you won't mind if I start with these questions. Cindy Sue will come to you because I don't want us to, because I will also lose track. These questions are too many.
Sorry, I do have a last question.
No? Okay.
Which is whether you attended Mama Winning's funeral.
Is that mine for the second edition? Oh, okay, well, let's talk. Let's talk. Okay. Did you ever meet Henk Hesselinga? Yes. If I talk about what I remember in terms of the context in which I met him, you will be here for the whole day. I may have met him at the Goldstone Commission because I headed the peace desk in the ANC. I'm the one who was coordinating the work, not just of the ANC, but of the Tripartite Alliance, dealing with issues of politically motivated violence. So I may have met him there. There was nothing outstanding about him if I met him. That makes me remember that there was a mutual familiarity and maybe mutual attraction. Did I know he was part of the team? I must tell you, sitting in that position, there are many, many teams that were formed to investigate various things. I left government 11 years ago, right? 10 years ago. So if you woke me up at night and said, do you remember this? Do you remember that? I wouldn't immediately remember. Even Hesselinga, assuming he was genuine. In your documentary, he says 1994. Yeah, so I say he's talking about Father Merve's time. No, I'm saying.
Yeah,
And he said, no, later he said, I made a mistake.
No, he didn't make a mistake. I removed something in the editing because in 1994, 1994, he explained that he became head of the murder squad in Victoria.
But I'm saying he said he was called to my office to be instructed to investigate in 1994. So I'm saying if his memory would need to be assisted, that applies to everybody else's memory. Now, I'm saying this to make the point that I saw also that Fivers was mixing up things in the interview. But he does say Hesslinger was in the team. We'll talk about that. Now, I'm also saying to you, I'll repeat this about this large budget. You don't go to the commissioner and you are given a large budget to do an investigation. You go to the commissioner and you are told, please investigate this. You go and work out your investigation plan and cost it. I mean, at least you must accept that we are one of the better run governments in the world. We wouldn't just say there is money in the back pocket of the minister, give it to these guys, they are nice guys. So you make a case for a budget. I thought you were going to talk about 3 million rand, 300,000 rand.
No, that's just one element. That's just
Okay. But the point I'm making is, Katiza Tebekulu was taken out of the country, isn't it? Someone has to travel, because Katiza Tebekulu was one of these Mandela Football Club people. Someone has to travel to England to go and do an investigation.
They also travel to Tanzania.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I would not know that they alighted at this station and said, these are details I would not know. But if they travel, I sign the authorization to say they are traveling to London, they are traveling to Tanzania. They don't come and give me the detailed report. They give it to the Attorney General, who must decide whether to prosecute or not to prosecute. So please, the details I would not know. I know that which a minister must know. Trying to uncover bodies in Dobsonville. Sure, I don't know where people were pointing them to. That you can see, it's an issue of detail. But if they followed the details that, they followed the routes that they were being pointed to, I think they were doing a good job. Jerry Richardson in prison. Or maybe you say, I mix, what do you call it, Stratcom and murder and robbery squad. If I gave that impression, it's unfortunate. I don't. I know that Hank Hesslinger was in the murder and robbery squad, right? But I'm not naive to think that the murder and robbery squad, when it is investigating things around Winnie, Stratcom will not be interested. Because there are things which implicate Stratcom, because they infiltrated the team. Now, the people who wanted to ensure that there is no truth commission, which would bring Stratcom operations under scrutiny, would also want to make sure that if they can, they control Hesslinger's findings. They don't lead. You get the point I'm making? It's simple logic. I'm saying they can't be uninterested, the Stratcom people, in what Hesslinger was doing. And if I appeared to be conflating the two, I was making the point that there can't be lack of interest in what Hesslinger was doing. Now, Goldstone was not looking at the work of the murder and robbery squad. Eh?
Well, they were investigating.
No, I'm saying, yeah, but principally, you were dealing with the issues of politically motivated violence. No problem to bring in competencies in that investigation that are relevant, including murder and robbery detectives. But I'm not saying I question Hesslinger's credentials. They were questioned by his peers there, not by me, in the Goldstone Commission. And I say, go and talk to Goldstone about it, or to the other people who were his peers there. Jerry Richardson, he is in prison. And this is the problem that the Stratcom people had. Because when somebody is in prison who was part of these things, and you have people outside who do not want to go to the Truth Commission, they fear that there is somebody who might want to talk. He's sitting in prison. Do you get what I'm saying? Because there is a precedent. Joe Mamasela, when he was in prison, for completely unrelated issues, and he was about to go to the gallows, he started spilling the beans, implicating people who were outside. So Jerry in prison, it's a threat to the Stratcom people because they cannot reach him and say, don't go and say the following to the Truth Commission. So if people who were reinvestigating these issues went to Jerry Richardson, they were right. It's a likely source of the information they are looking for. So Jerry Richardson says, I know where the bodies are, but I won't tell you because the police owe me 10,000 rand. Now, really, let's just discuss as people. Would you say, we don't give you 10,000 rand, you can sit with your information? I think that would have been irresponsible. Think like the...
So you did know that?
No, I didn't. I didn't. That.
You did know that he was paid well?
Yeah, but I must make this point. The police don't come to me and say we are paying an informer. Because I'm not one of them, I'm a minister. I want you to go to press conferences where I sat and said, so many people were arrested. I always said the police have arrested, so I never said we. You will never see me in police uniform. So they can't say to me, we are paying this informer, we are paying that informer. But I'm saying, when they subsequently said so publicly at the Truth Commission, I understand. Are you sure about that? Okay. But I'm saying they did say that publicly anyway. Now, when they said so, I was not in the least surprised. Because I think 10,000 rand, you can't compare it with the lives of people that were missing and their families are looking for closure. By the way, those are not the only families that were looking for closure. I'm looking for closure. Hank Hesslinger and his colleagues can't tell me what happened to my brother who disappeared in 1991. So I'm saying we are looking for closure, many of us. And if the police cannot afford to pay 10,000 rand to someone who can give them that information, please, they must come to me, I'll give it to them.
So this immense investigation into all the allegations against Winnie Mandela was undertaken in preparation for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission?
No.
So it happened just in...
Just in what? Why are you taking?
It's a question because
I'm asking you because it's not as if something has not been said. Why are we taking Tony Leon out of the equation? I am saying these investigations took place at the behest of Tony Leon. I'm talking about the ones we know, right? Yeah, they took place at the behest of Tony Leon. Whatever was found was taken to the Attorney General. R12 from the Attorney General said, on the basis of this, I can't, prosecute. That's the Attorney General. That's the competent authority on this matter. Fivers was going to the Truth Commission because what the Truth Commission does, it says, Tandi Gubule is appearing before us. What is it that any state organ might have on this matter, which we must have in case she comes here and claim to be making all the disclosures so that we may give her amnesty? And we have got things in the possession of a State Department, which she doesn't talk about. We must be able to ask her about that. So even me, when I went to the Truth Commission, the police information on the case which led to my conviction was at the Truth Commission. If I had said some things that made them feel that maybe they must ask the police to come and corroborate or whatever, they would have called them. I'm saying...
I don't want to make...
Okay, allow her.
Except that I do think that, I mean, I haven't quite read this, but I do think that there's an entire thing which seems to be sort of demonising and discrediting the documentary. So I feel that I do have a right to ask.
No, you have a right.
And one of the questions that hasn't yet been answered is whether you met Henk Heslinger when you were a minister.
Yeah.
At
Sure. I was saying to you.
Yeah.
Well, firstly, let me deal with the word of demonizing. I think that word of demonizing can apply to people who were not given an opportunity to deal with your chilling findings, right? Yeah, I think it applies more there than anywhere else. The point I'm making about this is that there is a version other than the one that is in the documentary, which was not given an opportunity to be aired. But yeah, I did.
You say Paul Erasmus was in the documentary because he's not.
Who was in the documentary? Okay, so okay, let's avoid a dialogue. The point therefore I'm making is that you need to know that people's credibility, because there are people who trade only on their credibility. This documentary, it may not have been an intended consequence, is causing a lot of pain to families, to many people who were associated with the struggle for liberation in this country. You need to know that. It's not up to me to say what do we expect for the future, because it's not our documentary, it's yours. Henk Heslinger, the contexts in which I met him include, I wouldn't remember every context because I didn't do my work. I'm not a policeman who keep an occurrence book. I didn't keep an occurrence book in anticipation that one day I'll be asked, do you know Henk Heslinger? How many times did you meet him in your life? We set up a cross-border investigation team. And I'm saying we. I'm not saying the police. It was the police and the political leadership, because it was a cross-border operation to deal with very sensitive operations of recovering illegal firearms and so on. And that was during, it was during Fiver's time. And Hesslinger was part of that team, which needed to be briefed by me because of the cross-border. And we were involved with my counterparts in Mozambique and other parts, I think Namibia, and other parts of the SADC. So yes, I know Hesslinger. What I don't know is why he lies. That I can't account for. I don't know.
No.
I've talked about that. I've talked about that. That I gave him money to investigate Mrs. Mandela. From me. Not from me. I was not the accounting officer of the SAPS. Your document, in your documentary, it says I promised him money, and I'm saying I was not the accounting officer of the SAPS. People who know how government works will understand the absurdity of his claim. But let's avoid the dialogue.
Let's go to
Nomboniso.
No, Cindy Siwe first.
Oh,
I think
okay.
we should end with numbers.
Oh, okay. Cindy Siwe.
Cindy, do you want to repeat your questions?
Yeah. Following the to and fro that it was taking place, so what must happen going forward? Were you consulted before the document placed or was aired? Or was there like a request at any point for your side of the story? Secondly, what should happen now? Should there be, should the documentary not be aired any further? I know that the time frames have met, but should it be stopped from airing any further? And just your recourse on that.
Well, let me say this. I have no indication that somebody wanted me to appear on the documentary. No, I'm not asking. I can't use a briefing. I cannot use a media briefing to ask for an apology. I'm saying.
Can you answer?
Oh, Cindy Siwe. I'm answering Cindy Siwe. I'm saying I have no indication that somebody thought I'm important enough to be asked to give my version on the documentary. That I don't have. What should happen going forward, I don't know, because I don't work in the field of making documentaries. What I do know, and as I said, assuming because that we all may even err in good faith. What I'm saying is, I hope that all of us are drawing the correct lessons out of this experience. The correct lessons that when we want to commemorate a legacy that is known and revered for its opposition to injustice, we must also use just methods and observe the principles of fairness. That's how you commemorate an important person like Nomzamo Winnie Mandela. You do justice to her, you do justice to every other person, because we fought for a freedom that is indivisible. So all I'm saying is, it may not be a principle that is observed in other countries, but South Africans know that that is what we fought for. Now, Nomboniso, you did not come here in a capacity as a journalist. You came here in a capacity, I guess, as a concerned South African. What I've just said about the lessons that we must take away from this is actually the message that I wanted to use this opportunity to convey to all South Africans. Our freedom did not come cheaply. we must defend it. We must defend it. We must not be misled by people who were opposed to our freedom into thinking that we must act according to what they tell us about us. That is really the message I wanted to convey to the people of South Africa. I hope we learned. We must commemorate, as South Africans, the legacy of Winnie Mandela. We will be commemorating now. She was commemorated by the United Nations. The United Nations will join us in commemorating the centenary of Nelson Mandela and Albertina Sisulu. We must not forget who those people were. In this documentary, I see a Nelson Mandela that is known to that is not known to the people of South Africa. We must not forget that we have something that no other country has, and that is Nelson Mandela. I listened to many people who were suddenly beginning to forget this prized asset. You know, when former president of Bill Clinton was in trouble with his own people in America, he asked Nelson Mandela, from a small country like this one, please come and help me. That speaks to the moral authority of what we stood for as South Africans, and we must not trade that moral authority for 30 shillings. That's all I wanted to tell our people.
Thank you very much. Can I offer maybe one last question? Yeah, that's.
It's Lorenzo Tama from ENCA. Mr. Mohamadi, I appreciate that you've said that we shouldn't let other people tell our history and so forth. But you do also, you also even write it down in the notes that you've given us, where Mwini does, in her own words, question the timing of the subpoena, essentially alluding to the fact that it was really served to destabilize her politically. What are your reactions on that?
You know, to her credit, she may have had questions. She's not the only one who had questions. As I was saying to you, we mobilized MK cadres to go to the Truth Commissions. They had many reservations, but she went. Do you understand the point I'm making? She went. There are people who were saying, you can't ask people from the old order and us to go to the Truth Commission because we are drawing a moral equivalence between what we were fighting for and what these people were fighting for. They had questions, but I'm saying, notwithstanding her questions, she went to the Truth Commission. That, to me, is what is important. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We can talk after that for people who want one-on-one interviews after. Thank you.
I have an 11:30 meeting, right. So if we talk, we can talk until 10 past. Okay. Mate. Oh, okay. Thank you.
But I like the way you handle it.
Okay, sure.
when life takes a different turn.
If I didn't eat the speak, he was going to evict me.
Your will to persevere is ignited.
I'm not a professional speaker, but I'll try my best to give you a word of inspiration.
He was just trying to provide for his family.
If you can't accept it, change it. If you cannot change it, accept it.
And a new story begins.
Made a resolve to myself. I'm learning something new.
Bupilong, every Friday at 5:30. Be part of the life-changing journey.
Very good morning to you. Welcome to SABC's Newsroom. I'm Shante Yankees. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Let's have a look at your headlines. Mufamadi says he was denied the right to participate in the documentary on the late struggle icon Winnie Madikizela Mandela. The DA's recall clause expected to dominate the party's caucus meeting today. A Port Elizabeth man who tossed his baby off a roof in court for attempted murder. Minister Xasa says that the team can do no more after ending sixth on the Commonwealth at the Games Gold Coast medal table after winning 13 medal golds. Very good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Well, firstly, we will be discussing that briefing that just took place by a former Minister of Safety and Security, Sydney Mafumadi. Of course, he says he was denied the right to participate in the documentary on the late struggle icon Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Mafumadi says that he did not respond immediately to allegations levelled against him because he was observing the period of mourning.
You may be wondering why I kept quiet or we kept quiet for this long. I know that Commissioner Fivers, who's my co-accused in this matter, did an interview at the request of ENCA, responding to some of these revelations. I chose to observe the period of mourning for Comrade Nomzamo because I thought it will be wrong for me to be tempted to stampede her legacy, which, by the way, is our shared legacy. I believe that the producer of this documentary is an award-winning producer. And I know she's here. I wonder whether the people who give these awards regard issues of ethics as being of any materiality. I raise this question because, as I say, the document I gave you talks about 5 chilling revelations. You make 5 chilling revelations about people who are still alive. They are very much available. You don't think they have a right to ensure that they put forward a version which may corroborate what the other people are saying, or which may need to be compared and contrasted to what the other people are saying, which would have been a fair thing I think, to do. This is a right I will promote and defend, even if the victim is not myself.
Meanwhile, Mafamadi addressed claims made in the award-winning documentary by Pascal Lamch that he put pressure on the then Police Commissioner George Fibaz to restart investigations into Madikizela Mandela in an effort to have her tried for murder.
The chilling finding. The ANC asked apartheid police to reopen investigations on Winnie about the Stompie murder. You can see I'm saying Winnie because I'm just reading directly what was said. In 1995, Minister of Safety and Security, and that was myself at the time, said that a team of police officers, including Hank Hesslinger, the dramatist persona in the documentary, must be established to reopen this investigation, find evidence linking her, Mrs. Mandela, to the assassination and murder of Stompie. And the minister promised, well, maybe I should say, this is what is being said in the document I gave you in 1995. I don't know what that document was quoting because Hank Hesslinger in the documentary, using the mouth which is his and not another person's mouth, says 1994. But anyway, this document says 1995. And in the process of talking to the team, which Hesslinger was part of, the minister said, I am a member of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, and then promised the team unlimited access to budgetary resources, which will even enable them to travel the world. Now, Hesslinger is not, even at the time of being interviewed, is not a constable who had just graduated from basic police training. A senior police officer who should know best that as far as operational issues are concerned, deciding on whether to open or close investigations, that is the province of the National Commissioner. It's not the responsibility of the minister. I know what he was describing. He's describing things that I heard about how policing used to be done before 1994. He was not describing what we did. We ran ethical governance in the Ministry of Safety and Security and in the Department of Safety and Security. He knows Hesslinger fully well that the accounting officer of that department which he belonged to is the Commissioner of Police. There was no slush fund. Maybe he still had a propensity for slush funds. We did not have them during my time in that office. He must also credit me with some decent level of IQ. Why would I say to a police officer, I'm a member of the NEC, of the ANC? What does that have to do with my relationship with him? I'm a member of the NEC, of the ANC. I did not have time for irrelevancies. I really did not have that. I don't know what sensation he wanted to produce, even as he talked about that. I think he has a very dismal estimation of my intelligence.
Of course, that was Mufamadi giving his account and replying to the documentary. Of course, earlier on he had said that he did not want to reply to the documentary earlier in respect and honor of the late Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela, saying that it would be insensitive. So we've actually been hearing his side of the story as well as some of the names that he's brought up. Continuing with that press briefing, one of the journalists, Thandeka Kubule, who attended the media briefing there this morning, then asked the minister to explain how she stands accused of being in the employ of Stratcom. Kubula was among the first of the journalists to write about the discovery of Stompie Sepe's body. Of course, also heard there mentioning that all her sources were very credible.
As you know, I wrote the first story and I found the body of Stompie Sepe in the mortuary in Soweto. Now, I stand accused of being a Stratcom spy. And for the sake of history, let me say, I will never reveal the sources on that story, but not a single one of them was a police source. All the sources were in the church, which was worried sick. All the sources were neighbors and community members. And all the sources were members of the mass democratic movement, in which I was rooted from the age of 14. Now I want to know, when you first sat in your desk as Minister of Police, Stratcom was a police project. And people came and they brought to you details of the operations of Stratcom. I don't seek to make my problem yours, and I will be going to the High Court to apply for the declassification of files involving myself. But did you at any stage see or hear that I or my colleagues who worked at the Weekly Mail were agents of Stratcom? Or did you just hear that we did an honest story and did journalism, investigative journalism, and we were indeed ahead of the police investigations on these matters, and we punched above our weight?
Well, this is how the former Minister of Safety and Security responded to Ms. Kubule's question.
Thandeka, well, you've got a unique story. You also took advantage of the uniqueness of your story to ask a number of questions. I don't know what you think we do. We take the next question, or do we deal with this question?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think the country must thank you for what you did. You must not be deterred from being an honest journalist. I don't know what people meant when they said you were working for Stratcom. Maybe that's the first impression they had, but they have an obligation to study developments in the country. Do you know who killed Stompie? I'm not saying were you there. I'm saying, do you know?
I know that Jerry Richardson was involved in the murder.
No, he said he killed Stompie in court. And he said that also at the Truth Commission. That's right. And Jerry Richardson said he himself was a police spy.
He did, a registered one.
That's right. You must assume that the Stratcom types knew that he was going to kill Stompy. You understand what I'm saying now? You must understand that they knew he killed Stompy because he's their person. I think these are issues we should not even debate. So you can't work for Stratcom. I'm talking now logic. You can't work for Stratcom and expose their operation. That's simple logic. I'm not cleansing you because I don't have answers to the actual questions you are asking. And I'll tell you why I'm saying so. And you also did say, I think I'm making your job difficult. I don't know why you proceeded to do so. There is nobody who came to me from the police and said, here are the Stratcom files. And you should know, having been a journalist during that period we are talking about of the transition, that the files were taken away, presumably by people who owned those files. Some were destroyed, others were kept by individuals. I hope you understand. Others were kept by individuals, some of whom made them available, say, to the Truth Commission or to the, what do you call it now, to the Goldstone Commission before the Truth Commission. Nobody came to me and said, we've got a box full of files from Star.
The attendees of today's press briefing was Pascal Lunch, the producer of the documentary Winnie. She asked for former Safety and Security Minister Sydney Mafumadi if he was aware that Jerry Richardson was promised 10,000 rand for information that resulted in the murder of 3 senior MK cadres. And this is what Mafumadi had to say.
I know that Hank Hesslinger was in the murder and robbery squad. Right? But I'm not naive to think that the murder and robbery squad, when it is investigating things around Winnie, Stratcom will not be interested. Because there are things which implicate Stratcom because they infiltrated the team. Now, the people who wanted to ensure that there is no Truth Commission, which would bring Stratcom operations under scrutiny, would also want to make sure that if they can, they control Hesslinger's findings. They don't lead. You get the point I'm making? It's simple logic. I'm saying they can't be uninterested, the Stratcom people, in what Hesslinger was doing. And if I appeared to be conflating the two, I was making the point that there can't be lack of interest in what Hesslinger was doing. Now, Goldstone was not looking at the work of the murder and robbery squad. Eh? No, I'm saying, yeah, but principally, you were dealing with the issues of politically motivated violence. No problem to bring in competencies in that investigation that are relevant, including murder and robbery detectives. But I'm not saying I question Hesslinger's credentials. They were questioned by his peers there, not by me, in the Goldstone Commission. And I say, go and talk to Goldstone about it, or to the other people who were his peers there. Jerry Richardson, he is in prison. And this is the problem that the Stratcom people had. Because when somebody is in prison who was part of these things, and you have people outside who do not want to go to the Truth Commission, they fear that there is somebody who might want to talk. He's sitting in prison. Do you get what I'm saying? Because there is a precedent. Joe Mamasela, when he was in prison, for completely unrelated issues, and he was about to go to the gallows, he started spilling the beans, implicating people who were outside. So Jerry in prison is a threat to the Stratcom people because they cannot reach him and say, don't go and say the following to the Truth Commission. So if people who were reinvestigating these issues went to Jerry Richardson, they were right. It's a likely source of the information they are looking for. So Jerry Richardson says, I know where the bodies are, but I won't tell you because the police owe me 10,000 rand. Now, really, let's just discuss as people. Would you say, we don't give you 10,000 rand, you can sit with your information? I think that would have been irresponsible. Think like the...
So you did know that?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
You did know that he was paid well?
Yeah, but I must make this point. The police don't come to me and say we are paying an informer. Because I'm not one of them, I'm a minister. I want you to go to press conferences where I sat and said, so many people were arrested. I always said the police have arrested, so I never said we. You will never see me in police uniform. So they can't say to me, we are paying this informer, we are paying that informer. But I'm saying, when they subsequently said so,
once again, Mufamadi giving his recount there. In response to that documentary, we will be giving you more details around that, as well as responses and reaction. In some other news now, the future of Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille will dominate discussions at a DA caucus meeting today. This follows amendments to the party's constitution at its Congress last weekend. Well, Deputy Caucus Leader in Cape Town, JP Smith, says they are armed with the newly instituted recall clause and another possible motion of no confidence in de Lille. The recall clause allows the party to remove office bearers in whom the party no longer has confidence. Smith says more DA councillors want de Lille out. De Lille survived a DA motion of no confidence by one vote back in February. There were 3 abstentions. She was supported by the ANC and EFF and other small opposition parties. She also faces a DA disciplinary hearing on misconduct charges. Well, a Port Elizabeth man who tossed his baby off a roof to keep him from being removed from his home will make his first appearance in the New Brighton Magistrates Court this morning. The 38-year-old man allegedly flung his 1-year-old baby off a shack roof last Thursday in a desperate effort to resist eviction from the Joe Slovo informal settlement in Kwadesi. The accused was remanded in custody until his appearance this morning. The shocking incident occurred during the demolition of illegal structures conducted by the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality. A quick-witted policeman on duty at the scene managed to catch the baby before the little one hit the ground. The baby now is back with the mom and is reportedly unhurt but traumatized. And these are just some of the visuals that we're showing you that were doing the rounds on social media when we saw and we heard that horrific story there. Moving on to some other news now, audit firm KPMG says it will continue its internal and independent investigations against 2 partners who resigned last week amid accounting irregularities related to VBS Mutual Bank. Sipo Malaba and Dumi Juma reportedly signed off on the VBS accounts and failed to report the existence of 900 million rand in deposits related to fraudulent transactions. Well, the matter comes as KPMG is on a mission to win back clients and some partners that it lost since September last year due to an investigation into its work with the Gupta family.
KPMG says it is deeply disappointed that it is once again in the news for the wrong reasons. The resignations of Sipho Malaba and Dumi Chuma have brought into question the rot into the auditing firm, especially at a time when the company is trying to pull itself out of a reputational glut.
We've got policies and procedures that require people to declare financial interests. Not all of those were followed, so we were not satisfied with that. So when questions were asked, not all the information was provided to us, and it was felt that some of the information was misleading. So this is shocking for us and disappointing.
The auditing firm says the big banks that it audits, which include Barclays Africa and Investec, have not been affected by the latest developments. It has so far lost less than 10% of its client base since September 2017.
With our clients to ensure that there is reassurance, not just by a word, but indeed in the actions that we had taken while they were there, and the actions that we're continuing to take.
The says it will take what it calls unprecedented steps to gain public trust. These include reopening files completed in the last 18 months and conducting background checks on all partners and their spouses.
Well, let's cross back live. We do understand that there is an altercation outside that hearing that was just held by Sydney Mufamadi. Our reporter is on the ground. We'll give you some live visuals as we cross over.
No, and you didn't care to check. You knew that.
Thank you very much. At the moment, we just listening to.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Have you clarified what you're saying?
No, I just wanted to address that point. Yes, you can.
Your response to that, what you say now, is just a lie. What you say is now.
Well, I mean, you know, this is. What I say is just a lie. Could you just no, because I don't know how you're going to cut this. What is it? So restate what you think was just said.
What Mpo has just stated to you, that the narrative that you gave inside, it's different from what the minister have said in relation to the investigation itself.
I said my conclusions from this press conference is that everything I say in the film was sustained, that the minister knew Henk Hesselinga, knew of these investigations, probably initiated them considering that it was such an enormous investigation, that it was incredibly costly, that it was cross-frontier investigation, that it lasted several months. He sustained all of that. So I think this was organised to discredit my film entirely. I mean, I haven't read these notes yet, but it seemed to me that this was a sort of a condemnation. I wasn't going to be here, of course. I came at the last minute.
Just before we come into you thinking that you've been discredited.
Well, no, the film has been discredited.
The film has been, but you, the producer of the film. That's right.
That there's a
Did you ever think about it when you did it without consulting those who are involved, without getting their comment?
Did I ever think about the story?
Yes.
I was making an entire film about very secret things that were a number of different operations that were conducted to discredit Winnie Mandela. Okay? Now, I don't think the film is discredited in any way by what we learned in this press conference. I think the former minister confirmed everything that was in the film, and also some of what wasn't in the film, because he also confirmed that Jerry Richardson was paid money whilst he was in jail by the police service, you know, for information that he was giving about Winnie Mandela. So this doesn't contradict the fact that there was an enormous investigation into allegations against Winnie Mandela in 1995. Again, that reopened all sorts of things that had been tried in court before. And at her appeal, after the court case that alleged that she'd been involved in kidnapping, etc., at that appeal, her appeal was sustained. So thereafter, in 1995, why was there this enormous investigation into Winnie Mandela? And then why was it that at the TRC, she faced charges that were effectively criminal charges that she was not in a position to defend herself from? So you have to tie these things together.
Much as you
and
do
this
that.
is the story. This is the importance, and this is the history that needs to be investigated by all of you journalists and all of you South Africans. You need to dig deep into this.
The history that needs to be investigated also has to be balanced. Did you go to Minister Mafumari to get this comment?
No, I didn't, and I apologize to him in this, because there wasn't...
Did you have to wait for the press conference to apologize to you?
No, but my film was finished in January 2017. It was shown in June 2017. There was an ANC minister in the screening with Mama Winnie and a huge full audience in June 2017. Why was that not brought up at that point? Why was this not brought to my attention then? Why did this not become a big press issue then? Why has it become a press issue now? I mean, this is the thing. There are lots of things going backwards and forwards, but the point is, you know, is this film a credible film? Is it an important story to bring out in South Africa today? Is it something that people need to answer for? Is it something that initiates discussion into a very critical period of your history from 1984 to 1997 or not? And I believe that it is. But it is your job not to discredit the film or discredit me, but to go and investigate for your own satisfactions whether this important film that gives you all kinds of insights into all sorts of ways in which Winnie Mandela was demonized, criminalized, etc., it deserves an airing and deserves a discussion in South Africa today. I believe it does.
It does, but the sentiment that it caused pain to many South Africans.
Well, of course, this entire period was horrendous. So there's no doubt the most violent. I mean, we're talking about apartheid. We're talking about the most terrifying and terrible, socially engineered, oppressive regime in history. Okay, there's no doubt about it. That was long-lasting and that was sustained by the British government and the Americans, etc., etc. We know that. What we don't know is just how effective it was in demonizing Winnie Mandela. And what troubled me was that when I traveled in the world, everywhere I went, everybody thought that Winnie Mandela, who was so loved and respected in this country by such a large mass of South Africans, everybody on the outside thought that she was a murderer, that she was corrupt, that she was, I mean, the list of charges against her is so long, and you can check most of the obituaries internationally that have come out, and they all say, oh well, she was sort of loved by her people, but she was bad. She dealt in murder, in kidnapping, and all of these sorts of things. So the film is the first offering to begin to counter that narrative, and in that film, you are given the opportunity for the first time to listen to the director of Stratcom, who speaks for the first time and explains exactly what that psychological warfare involved and how they targeted Winnie and how effective it was generally, and how they controlled the media in many ways, and how they produced films that they sold to stations all over the US and that were disseminated in the world. And in my view, it's of public interest to know that this happened, to counter somewhat all the other narrative, which is very well known in the world and which is constantly reiterated, reproduced, and without any investigation. So I think the film has, of course, unsettled the waters, created debate, brought up all kinds of painful issues, etc. There have been all kinds of unforeseen consequences, of course. I mean, you don't set out to try and make a film that tries to tell some truth that hasn't been told before without did I expect there to be such a huge reaction? No, I didn't. And I think that if the film had gone out when it was first presented, after it was first presented in South Africa, which was in June 2017, it might have gone out on SABC, etc. Maybe there wouldn't have been such an enormous response. I think the enormous response is because everybody's very emotional about the passing of Mama Winnie, of course. It's a huge event, and the battle about her legacy is a really significant one.
Thank you. That's Pascal Lampsha, who's behind the movie or the documentary that has been playing, and for now it's back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much for giving us the views there of the producer and somewhat of the backlash that she seemed to have forgotten upon releasing the movie only now, mentioning that Winnie Madikizela documentary was actually made last year in January and then aired for the first time in June 2017. For the first time, we're actually hearing a recount as to why she actually made the movie and what she sees the significance behind that. Let's have a look now at some other news. The Anglo-American South Africa, in conjunction with the Department of Basic Education, has launched an educational program to improve learners' outcomes in schools local to the Anglo-Americans operations in South Africa. Well, the program will focus on 100 early childhood development ECD sites and 100 selected primary and secondary schools. To give us some more details on the program launched last week, we are joined now in studio by Anglo-American South Africa's Deputy Chairperson, Norman Mbazimba. Very good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Can you firstly give us a bit more details around the partnership between Anglo-American and the Department of Education?
Right. The partnership is really to see if we can help to improve the educational outcomes for the kids that go to ECDs and primary and secondary schools around our operations. It has to be a partnership with the Department of Education. They're responsible for education in those places, and we are there to support, to make sure that those education outcomes can improve. As you know, education is one of the challenges that we have in South Africa.
Indeed, how essentially are the departments as well as Anglo-American are going to take that forward in ensuring that the outcomes are progressive and positive?
What we're going to do is to select some schools, ask them if they wish to join this program, and when they do, we're then going to work with them and say, what are the kind of results that are being produced in this school, and how can they be improved? So we're going to look at each school separately and say, how can we improve? How can we spend some money? How can we spend some time? How can we spend some resources supporting the implementation of all the things that the DBA has already got in place to make sure that the kids can pass their tests? That's what we want to do.
Now, the mining industry has been criticized, somewhat from communities for neglecting, the immediate community around them. Is this a way in trying to change that going forward, in giving back to the immediate and surrounding areas in which the mines operate?
There's lots of discussions about what we do or don't do with communities. We live in those communities. They host us. We are in their home. So we've got to work with them to see that when you're in somebody's home, if you can improve the outcomes in that home, you really need to. So yes, it is part of our work with the communities to ensure that we can work together to improve the lives of those communities. But in this particular instance, I'm pleased to say, if you improve the educational outcomes of the kids, you help the kids, you help the community, and you help the country.
Now, in terms of identifying the schools that Anglo-American and the Basic Education Department are going to be collaborating with or partnering with, what are some of the requirements that are going to be looked at when selecting those schools to help?
So, the first is that they'd be local to where our mines are located. That's why we'll be operating in Limpopo, where our platinum and diamond mines are. We'll be operating in the Northern Cape, where our iron ore mines are, and we'll be operating in Mpumalanga, where our coal mines are. The second will be that after doing some research, we noticed that those schools that are in the poorest communities are the ones that are not producing the best results. So we'll be looking at those schools that are really suffering from lack of resources and from being not getting as much attention as they should in order to improve, and we'll be working with those schools to improve. Those are the main criteria. Of course, we'd like to make sure that we deal with ECDs that will feed into certain primary schools, that will feed into certain secondary schools, so that we have something of a pyramid and we can watch the kids go through all those processes.
On a broader spectrum, how do you think that this program is going to close the gap between education, the world of work, skills and unemployment?
I think the NDP says that this country is challenged in terms of inequality, in terms of poverty and unemployment. If you educate a child, they have a chance at being able to deal with all those three. If the child has a good education, they will be able to find a job. And therefore, they will get themselves out of poverty and hopefully help their family to get out of poverty. As I said, unemployment will be eased, and obviously they will be slightly more equal to those who are more fortunate than they are when they start.
Definitely. Thank you very much for your time this morning. That was Anglo-American South Africa's Deputy Chairman Norman Mazimba, just taking us through the partnership and collaboration between Anglo-American, the basic education departments and the surrounding supporting schools area. For now, then, we take a short break. Do stay tuned.
This is your midday report. Good afternoon.
I will be faithful.
I assume as President of the Republic of Kenya.
Let's take a look at how African markets and currencies are performing now.
The central bankers say the success of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is just a bubble.
Breaking stories, detailed economy and sport. Tune into Midday Report every Monday to Friday from 12 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom. Let's bring you some sports news now. The South African Commonwealth Games team arrived home having ended 6th on the medal table, one short of the team's 5th place target. The swimmers won the most amount of gold, 6 of the 13 which were brought home by the team. A failure by any of the team's sports to end in the medals and the omission of a men's or women's marathon side is the gap where South Africa can improve. The Minister of Sport, Thokozile Xaso, was talking earlier on Morning Live.
To really be part of the games themselves. And as they were, moving throughout the days, we could pick some of the gaps that we think as they come back, we're going to sit down and look at, because I think South Africa can do more, as you are saying. And, when we were, for instance, on the first days, we had our netball team. It's doing very well, highly recognized, but the actual team, when they were beaten by Jamaica, we could really see where the gaps are. Just like when we have 4x4 in the swimming, we could see the gaps in terms of what is it, are we giving enough platform even for practice?
Orlando Pirates coach Militon Trudojevic praised his players' character as the team came back to beat Amazulu 2-1 in Durban. The win ensured they maintain pressure on log leaders Mamelodi Sundowns, who sit 3 points ahead of the Soweto side. As the race to the league title continues, Maritzburg consolidated 3rd spot on the table following a 2-0 victory at Baroka. Within 8 minutes, United were 1-0 up, courtesy of Bandile Shandu.
In the game, shot coming in! Didn't get to the back of the net!
Early in the second half, SABC Ndlovu made it 2-0 for the team of choice.
What a cracker!
And that's how the match ended, 2-0 in the favour of Maritzburg United. In Johannesburg, Kaizer Chiefs were up against Platinum Stars. Amakosi came into the match eager to appease their fans who have been calling for the sacking of coach Steve Kompella. Hendrik Eksteen's 49th minute goal was the only of the match and provided some relief for the team. And Orlando Pirates bounced back from a midweek goalless draw in a thrilling encounter in Durban. Pirates came from 1-0 down against host Amazulu to move back to within 3 points of log leaders Sundowns. After Mabudi Kenyeza scored the opener, Pirates came back through Musa Nyatama.
It's a good ball. 1-1. Well, as Memela turns.
It was Thabo Qalinge who scored the winner.
Moment of the match to Bata. What a save. Coming their way through in the box, the fourth arriving. Lovely ball in. Here's the shot still. Drilled home. Pirates lead for the first time. 79 minutes is taken. Come from behind to grab 3 valuable points. They won't just lie down and hand over the championship. They'll keep chasing as long as they...
A full look at the Absa Premiership results from the weekend. On Saturday, it saw log leaders Mamelodi Sundowns just briefly extend their lead over Orlando Pirates on the log with a 2-0 victory over defending champion Bidvest. In the Free State derby between Stars and Celtic, the shares were spoiled, as were the shares between Cape Town City and SuperSport United. SuperSport United's second goalless draw on the trot. What does it mean to the log table? Well, let's take a look. The clock is ticking for Tukwena, who are still at the bottom with 21 points from 27 matches. Pirates are within 3 points, meanwhile, of log leaders Mamelodi Sundowns. The Buccaneers are on 49 points with only 3 games remaining, with the Brazilians sitting on 52 points with a single game in hand. All right, and that's how we come to the end of your sport. Let's return now to our top story on Newsroom. SABC News spoke to one of the journalists accused of being involved with Stratcom in the 1990s, Thandeka Qubule Mbeki, and this is what she had to say in response to some of the allegations.
Political enemies or people that they want people to believe are their current political foes. So all those narratives are about the now, and it's about the idea that if you control the narrative about the past, you can control the future. Now, I was alive to that, and personally, I won't allow anybody to define me. I know my contribution to this country. I'm not the kind of human being who goes looking around for their soul. I am the kind of human being who knows exactly who she is and what my mission in life is. I am a journalist, and I'm a journalist of good standing. I am a child of God, and I know justice. I am an activist of this country who has fought long and hard since the age of 14 years old, served in and out of prisons this liberation movement to liberate this country. So I'm not worried about me, because I know that even although the arc of the universe is very long, it always bends towards truth and it always bends towards justice. I am worried about a new generation of South Africans worrying about journalism. Journalism is a social good, and journalism is good for society.
And do you intend taking any further action on this?
Yes. In order to create a path for all people who are falsely accused by others of being apartheid spies. Let me tell you, my colleagues, something that happened to me in my youth. In my youth, we founded a youth league called DCO Matiwane Youth League. And in the heat of battle, there in the Midlands of Natal, what actually happened was that a friend, a comrade, was accused of being a spy. His name was Benj Langa. What followed his accusation was his death. Later, Lusaka told us that Benj was never a spy. On this basis, I learned that the accusation of a spy is a denial of the contribution of another South African who has honestly given their life to the cause. And to journalism, I have given my life. So really, I really think it was reckless in the extreme. Whoever was busy with this mission of accusing Anton Harbour, there are many editors in this country who owe their careers and their beliefs to the socialization in the newsroom that Anton Harber created. Under Anton Harber, we exposed Stratcom, as Sydney Mafumadi indicated. Under Anton Harber, we learned that journalism must be meaningful and that it must mean something for society. And to that we have committed our entire lives. We are here in our middle ages, mournfully, ferial, all of us. We are gutted by what is happening to journalists around the country, and we think that it is a fascist streak to take aim at journalists, because journalists provide the kind of information that citizens need to make good on their lives, to make good decisions about their lives. Thank you.
Of course, very interesting views there coming in from that press, and then of course hearing both the producer as well as a journalist speaking about it.
Absolutely. I think there's going to be much debate following Sydney Mofamadi's press conference that was held earlier on today, that we brought you live here on Newsroom. That debate will continue on SABC News.
Definitely. We wrap up SABC Newsroom this morning. Thank you very much for joining us. We do it between 9 and 12. Myself, Shante Yankees.
And myself, Ellen Kirtley. Goodbye. God bless.